Tonight, the federal government remains shuttered as Washington faces one of its most intense political standoffs in recent memory. The shutdown has entered its 23rd day, halting services, delaying paychecks, and leaving millions of Americans in uncertainty. What began as a funding dispute has spiraled into a full-scale political confrontation. And now, a marathon speech from one Democratic senator has pushed tensions to a new breaking point as the Senate struggles to move forward. This is a fast-moving story with high stakes for the government, the economy, and the American people. Here's where things stand tonight. The United States government is still in a funding lapse after the Senate failed again to advance a Republican-backed continuing resolution that would temporarily reopen agencies and extend government operations into November. The bill needed 60 votes. It received 54. This marks the 12th unsuccessful vote since the shutdown began. With no agreement in reach and both parties unwilling to retreat from their positions, the standoff remains completely unresolved. At the center of the dispute is a clash over healthcare subsidies and federal priorities. Democrats argue the GOP bill ignores urgent healthcare concerns and fails to protect key insurance tax credits. Republicans counter that Democrats are holding the government hostage to force unrelated policy demands. As each side blames the other, the shutdown continues, and Americans are caught in the middle. What surprised even veteran lawmakers is how the latest vote was delayed for nearly an entire day, not by committees, not by negotiations, but by one senator speaking almost without pause. Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon took control of the Senate floor and delivered a stunning 22-hour and 37-minute speech, one of the longest in modern Senate history. The speech began Tuesday night and continued into the next afternoon. During that time, Merkley spoke about the shutdown, about what he called a tax on democracy, and about what he described as an authoritarian approach driven by former President Donald Trump. Because of Senate rules, as long as Merkley held the floor and continued speaking, no vote could be taken on the funding bill. No other business could advance. The chamber was effectively frozen, procedurally and politically, until Merkley stepped down. His goal, he later said, was simple: to force the nation to pay attention. Merkley accused Trump of shredding the Constitution, undermining democratic institutions, and blocking negotiations needed to reopen the government. Exhausted, leaning on the podium at times, Merkley insisted that he would speak as long as he was able to sound the alarm for what he called the greatest threat to the Republic since the Civil War. Senators filtered in and out. Two-span cameras stayed fixed. Reporters tracked the clock. And for nearly a full day, Merkley held the spotlight and the Senate floor. After hours of silence in the chamber, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer joined the marathon moment, questioning Merkley on the floor and unleashing pointed criticism at both Senate Republicans and former President Trump. Schumer accused the former president of refusing to govern responsibly, saying Trump was spending all his time eroding democracy, taking away our rights, instead of negotiating to end the shutdown. Schumer argued that the White House should stay home, cancel foreign travel plans, and work with lawmakers to resolve the healthcare dispute at the heart of the funding impasse. Across the Capitol, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries continued the same line of pressure. Speaking to reporters, Jeffries called the former president unhinged, unpresidential, unpatriotic, and un-American, and accused him of spending more time on the golf course than working to reopen the government. Democrats framed the shutdown as a crisis created and perpetuated by Republicans, claiming that the GOP has zero interest in reopening federal agencies unless Democrats surrender on health policy. Republicans strongly dispute that narrative. According to GOP leaders, Democrats are refusing to compromise and are blocking a funding bill that would immediately restore full government operations. Former President Trump, along with House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate leadership allies, has made the party's position clear. Negotiations will only happen after Democrats vote to reopen the government. In a message amplified on social media, Speaker Johnson said the former president is ready and willing to meet with Democratic leaders. but only after they allow the government to resume normal operations. Senate Republicans argue that Democrats are deliberately prolonging the shutdown to extract unrelated policy wins. In short, Democrats insist negotiations must happen before the vote. Republicans insist negotiations will happen after the vote, and so the stalemate continues. Once Senator Merkley finally yielded the floor, the Senate moved swiftly to a vote, but the result only deepened the stalemate. The motion to advance the continuing resolution received 54 votes in favor, 46 votes against. Short of the 60 required, just 3. Democrats crossed party lines, mirroring previous votes. No additional support emerged for the GOP plan. And with that, the 12th vote ended the same way as the first. Failure, gridlock, and no path forward. While lawmakers wage a war of speeches, votes, and press conferences, the shutdown continues to hit ordinary Americans hardest. Tonight, hundreds of thousands of federal employees remain either furloughed or working without pay. Essential services are strained. National parks, agencies, and departments operate with limited staff. Healthcare subsidies remain unresolved. Families and workers face mounting financial uncertainty. Outside Washington, frustration is growing, not by party but by paycheck. At 23 days, this shutdown is now the second longest in modern U.S. history, surpassed only by the 35-day shutdown of 2018-2019. But what makes this moment especially volatile is not the duration, it's the total lack of movement. There are no negotiations underway. There is no deal nearing completion. There is no bipartisan framework emerging. Instead, both sides remain entrenched, convinced that giving ground now will weaken them politically later. Meanwhile, government workers, families, and agencies wait for action that has yet to come. As of tonight, the Senate has no clear timeline for another vote, and neither party has signaled a willingness to reverse course. The options ahead are limited. A new bipartisan funding deal, unlikely without negotiation. To a revised GOP proposal, unlikely without concessions. Demounting public pressure, the only factor that historically forces breakthroughs for now. Senate business has resumed, but progress remains at a standstill. To recap, the government remains shut down. Senator Jeff Merkley delivered a 22-hour and 37-minute speech, one of the longest in a century. Democrats blame Trump and GOP leaders for refusing to negotiate. Republicans blame Democrats for refusing to vote first. 12th Senate vote has failed, and no end to the shutdown is in sight tonight. Americans are not witnessing compromise. They are witnessing confrontation, and the consequences will only grow the longer the shutdown continues. This story continues to develop, and the stakes remain high for every household affected by the shutdown. As Congress and the White House dig in, millions of Americans are left waiting for leadership, certainty, and a path forward. For ongoing coverage of this shutdown, the negotiations, and the impact across the country, stay tuned. And as always, we invite viewers to share their thoughts respectfully and constructively in the comments. What should Congress do next? Which side should move first? And how should the shutdown end? Thank you for watching. This is American Bulletin, and we will continue to follow this story every step of the way.